everybody. So it's that time of year. The leaves are falling, starting to fall. Depending on some trees are still green, others are yellow. But the leaves are coming down. We do know that. And it brings us to the question, to rake or not to rake? And we get asked that a lot. There's a lot of people who are like, no, you shouldn't rake. And people are like, no, you should rake. You should get rid of every leaf. And like most things in gardening, as I think you've picked up on by now, the answer lies somewhere in between. So for me personally, there's two areas I like to get rid of my leaves. Off my lawn and out of my flower beds and vegetable beds. And the reason for that is, as the leaves, what do you think of my leaves? That's pretty beautiful, eh?
Yeah.
Aren't you, Randy? I like that feedback.
Positive reinforcement.
Yeah. GAKidsTV is filmed in front of a live studio audience. Yeah, as those leaves come down, especially this time of year, cold mornings, warm days, gets cold overnight, that cycle continues. We know the rain happens more, whatnot. When those leaves come down, and they land on top of each other. We've all seen that. Well, if you don't rake, moisture can get trapped in there. And then with the warm days, and the cooler nights and the warm days, well, it becomes a perfect breeding ground for molds and fungus and bacteria, which we don't want. So I actually do like to rake or use a leaf blower, whatever, to get them out of those two primary areas. Now, when you're raking off your lawn, so we rake, well, I rake a few times a year, but the two main times that we rake are the spring and the autumn. So if you have your lawn, so there's your ground, and here's your nice green grass growing up, and we're not worried about the roots. We know that, you know what, I'll draw some roots. And there's the roots. So what happens is, as you work on your lawn over the summer, the spring, as you're playing on your lawn, the dust blows, things fall off of trees, you're planting, you knock soil over, all of this goes onto your lawn, and it starts building up. When you cut your grass, even if you're using a bagged mower, grass clippings fall. So you cut your grass, and all your clippings fall, and little leaves and debris, and it settles in between the grass. Well, it starts to build up a layer along here. Now that layer is known as thatch, and you want to get rid of that in the spring. So in the spring, this is a great rake to use. Nice and strong metal, and you really want to get in there and you really want to thresh that out. You want to get that thatch, you want to remove it. Now you don't want to remove all of it, a little bit isn't bad, but you want to thin it out. And the reason for that is you're allowing the roots to be exposed, the crowning grass to be exposed, water and sunlight to get into it easier, and you're really going to rejuvenate it. But in the winter, this thatch is actually going to give you a layer of protection. It's like mulching, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Tomorrow we're talking about protecting your garden, mulches, frost blankets, burlap, all of that kind of good stuff, and what you want to do. So this layer of thatch almost acts like a mulch on your grass. So what happens is the leaves fall on top of the grass, okay? So you're tempted to go out there and rake them, and you see people go out and they're just whack, whack, and you see a pile and it's, you know, 3/4 leaves and 1/4 thatch. You haven't done your grass any favors. Getting the leaves off it, great. The leaves are heavy, they're wet, they can produce mold, we can push the grass down, not let it breathe. Like we've already said, it's good to get them off. But when I'm getting rid of my leaves, I like to use a much bigger leaf rake. much softer, as you can see, not metal, it's a soft plastic, doesn't have the same rigidity, and it's just a very gentle scoop. That's all you want to do is just scoop the leaves off. You should be happy about that because it's significantly less effort. It's not like that spring one where you do a couple of strips of your lawn, your shoulders are tired, you get blisters on your hands, that kind of thing. All you want to do is remove those leaves and keep your thatch. Now, if you remember, we spoke about fertilizer. And the predominant fertilizers you're going to get, and we said to put this down, is this kind of fertilizer. This is a granular fertilizer. Okay, we touched on this yesterday at 10032. Now, the great thing about this time of year is exactly what we said about the leaves. So, as our leaves are piling up on each other, okay, with the range of temperature happening, and no sunlight getting down here, you got moisture building up all in here. That's bad. So we get rid of all of these leaves. These leaves are now gone, and we go back very simply to our lawn, like that, with our layer of thatch. Well, that moisture, and I know we've all seen it, I hope we have, I mean most of us are gardeners or want to be gardeners, and we get little beads of dew, okay? And that dew and that moisture builds up on the grass. Well, the great thing is that granular fertilizer needs moisture and heat to break down. So those granules of fertilizer, they get in there, they're on top of the thatch, and they get in there. Well, the days get up to 18 degrees, 20 degrees, 25 degrees, some of them, and you've got that moisture. So this starts breaking down, it starts crumbling into like microparticles, and the microparticles very easily find their way through the thatch. Then the plant starts absorbing them, like we said, 10032. So even though there isn't anything in there for the roots, our roots are down here, they're absorbing all of that, they're pushing it out, and they're keeping this grass nice and green with the nitrogen, thereby enabling the photosynthesis to keep it clean. So you going in and breaking off all that thatch, you're not doing anything beneficial, and you're removing that protective mulch layer. So now your grass has gone through the dormancy, it's about to face winter, and it's got zero protection on it. So that's essentially what you want to do for your grass. Now it's the same thing for say your veggie plots or your flower beds, that kind of thing. The leaves get on them, and again we'll go back to this, the moisture gets between them, perfect breeding ground for things you don't want. So you get it cleaned off, you leave it nice and empty. But what about areas where you do want to leave some leaves as a mulch? Some plants will benefit from leaves being around them. It's okay to rake your leaves into a big pot. Like how I imitated using a rake when I've got one right here.
There you go.
There we are. You can make a pot of them. Now, as you're raking and as you're moving them, you're going to dry them out. You're going to fluff them up. So they're not lying like that. I'm sure you've seen your lawn is covered in leaves, doesn't look like that many. You rake them and you get a pile my size, and then you jump in it and you make a big mess. It's best. But you've fluffed them up, you've allowed them to dry out. You can then use those leaves now and put them down there looser, they're not stuck together, there isn't as much moisture, and you can use that to mulch or plant or an area. And one thing, if you have the room on your property, and if not, try and make the room somewhere. Best parts are along a fence or a hedge. So if you've got your garden fence like this, and it's just grass going up to your fence. A lot of people have that, I know I do in my backyard. And there's your grass. You don't have any flower beds, you don't have anything else. You clean it all off, then, using your rake or your blower, put your loose leaves all along there. Make a big area. And the reason for that is having an area of leaves like that is incredibly beneficial for overwintering insects. So if you remember in the spring, if not, you can go back to our YouTube, scroll through our social media if you want, easier to find on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe. Finger guns. Totally lost my train of thought there, bugs. If you remember, we talked about the different types of bugs, the bad bugs and the good bugs. So what we want to do is we want to create an area for your beneficial bugs, and that is certain bees, certain wasps, spiders, centipedes, ladybirds. All of them are going to live in there. And the great thing about that is you're going to create this perfect little breeding ground for all of these guys. That means immediately in the spring, you can clean these leaves up. So now it's nice. We're back into April, May. It's time to get the garden cleaned. And you'll do this, and you'll wake these guys out of their dormancy, and the sun will be hitting them, and they'll be like, oh yeah, it's awesome, it's spring, just like us. They're gonna be hungry. They're gonna be thirsty. And they are going to hit your garden hard and fast, especially the ladybirds and the centipedes. Spiders are incredible too. Some of those wasps. And they're going to go after aphids and mites, and they're going to go after the larvae, and they're going to go after the eggs because they're hungry, and they're going to get you a step ahead of the game. So instead of you being reactive when you see in the spring and you're like, oh my god, the aphids are coming in. If you have a naturalized winter area where you have those beneficial bugs, you're already a step up. Then all of those leaves can just go straight into your compost, and that's fine. They're nice and dry, they've been overwintered. So that's kind of the idea behind raking, is I like to get it off, I like to loosen it up. Essentially, you don't want to have an area ever in your garden that is a breeding ground for your powdery mildews and your rust and things like that, because that will absolutely cause problems. Those funguses can linger forever. Ask any gardener who's had to deal with them before. But you fluff those leaves up and get them into a corner of your property, along a hedge, along a fence. Leave them over winter. I tell this story, and a lot of people, it's never happened to them before, because like anything, the more you do something, the more chances are it's going to happen. I remember cleaning out an area in the spring, and I got bit 3 different times from ladybugs. And those suckers hurt. And then the worst thing is, you feel even worse because something bites you, you go, ah! And then you're like, I just killed a ladybird. And you feel like a huge jerk, as you should. But they do hurt, but that's how hungry they are. How many people have picked up a ladybird and had it run over their finger and they're like, oh my god, this is adorable, it flies away. We seldom hear, we never hear about people being bit. You wake them up in the spring, they are that hungry, that cranky, much like when I wake up in the morning. They're ready to rock and roll. So having this overwinter area is fantastic. Don't rake it hard when you want to clean it out in the spring. You don't want to take your hard metal rake and you don't want to start ripping into it. You're going to end up hurting these guys. You're going to end up disturbing nests that they've been, stuff like that. For cleaning out those, again, loose rake, and what you can do is you can always rake it out and let it sit for a day. You've woken them up, you haven't hurt them, they'll move out and go start looking for their food. Then you can hit it with the proper rake and break it up. So I hope this answers some questions about why you rake, when you should rake, and how you should rake. And again, any questions, any feedback, let us know. Has anybody else, I have never ever yet met anybody else I've told that story to who's being bitten by a ladybird. So I'm asking you guys, is anybody being bitten by a ladybird? I'm really curious. But yeah, that's some tips on raking. Tomorrow, like I said, we're going to talk about protection, mulching, burlap, frost blankets, that kind of thing. And then on Thursday, we're going to be talking about how to clean up your annuals and your perennials and what you should do there. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
You didn't say bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.